Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. I'm Sean Schoenmakers, the owner of Action Coach Dallas, where we are helping business owners build and grow their businesses to ultimately improve their lives. Today, I have Ryan Strong, the owner of Stones AI, and he's our guest. So, how you doing, Ryan?
Hey Sean, great to be here. Excited.
All right, good stuff. We're glad to have you on as well. And so today we're going to be talking about Ryan's business, his journey in business ownership, all the good stuff, details about his journey and even some of the future. And
Mhm.
so if this is your first time on the channel, please make sure you subscribe so you can get notifications when we upload more of these great conversations so you can get more nuggets out of all the content we're putting out. And so, Ryan, without further ado, as I said, welcome. And maybe can you please give us an introduction to your company and the problems that you solve?
Yeah, sure. So again, great to be here. Excited to chat with you for a few minutes here. So Stones AI, we started Stones AI last year in 2024 as a AI ethics professional services company. So we are actually started just providing compliance audits, implementations around AI governance and those kind of things. So like ISO 42001, NIST AI, RMF, frameworks like that. Um, Knowing that I'm a product guy by heart and I've been building products for, a decade and a half. So I knew I was always going to build a product. This was just a way to, as I kind of not so eloquently say, it's like a way to do paid market research. So we could like do market research, figure out what was the actual issues going on, but get paid while we're doing that because doing that for free is expensive and not making money is generally not good, especially if you talk to the boss of the house, the wife. She doesn't like when I don't bring in money. So we started that last year. We took care of a few clients, got them, started them on their implementate their AI governance journey, which is really great. And then this year we've started to fold into the product. So we've started to develop the product this year. And what we're building is we are basically trying to automate the compliance journey for small to medium sized businesses. So companies that don't have a huge compliance team, they generally rely on outside compliance consultants. We are building a platform that will create the artifacts and evidence you need to be compliant, as well as perform the implementation and the audits for you using AI. We're using a generalized LLM as well as AI agents to be able to do that. But the kind of the key and where the thing that's really the gold for us and we feel like is a big differentiator is that we do two things. We keep humans in the loop, so there's always a human oversight, whether that's an internal employee for the company or if you use an outside consultant, there's somebody that checks all the work of the AI and goes, "Yep, that's good. We like this. Okay, we can move forward." And then the second part of that is we have a blockchain verification. So everything is stored in the blockchain. So you can build trust into the AI. You know exactly what they've done, the reasoning that they've got to where they've got to, and you can kind of verify and audit all of that all the way through. So yeah,
Okay.
that's the quick and easy of what we're doing.
When you say compliance with you mentioned like ISO and
Hmm.
like dot so but compliance, can you maybe tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, good question. So in theory, and I say in theory because we're still building the product, and anybody that's built products knows that, like, it's you have these like,
Iterations.
yeah, you have these grand ideas of where you're going to get to, and we're on that journey to get there. But
Yeah.
the way we're building the product is, in theory, any frame you could use any framework. So if you wanted to do HIPAA, you wanted to do what is DCI, PCSS, you wanted to do GDPR, CCPA,
Yeah.
SOC 2, it doesn't really matter because the system is built to where you can either attach to like create an API on the fly to a external framework provider, or you can upload your own frameworks, and the AI will create controls based on kind of its kind of set parameters, and then you can go in and tweak those. So in essence, you can build this out to be as customized as you want to, so you can do whatever frameworks you want. We do have a number of frameworks that are kind of set in stone. So ISO 27001, 27001, 42001, SOC
Mm.
2, GDPR, those kind of things, like the standards that almost everybody wants to go through, those are already baked into it. But anything else, if there's some kind of obscure framework in Peru that you want to be compliant with because you're moving your business into Peru, that you could, in theory, do that. So,
So yeah, if you're in an industry that has these types of compliance requirements, then the AI is useful in those
Yep.
scenarios. I see. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I was like, is there compliance for AI? I wasn't, like, hey, if you use AI, you should be compliant to X, Y, Z. But I see what
Yeah.
you're saying. If you're in the
Yeah.
industries, they have the compliance. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
cool.
just real quick on there is compliance with AI. Now it's not doesn't have teeth yet. So the EU AI Act, there's ISO 42001, Colorado has an AI Act, New York State has an AI Act. None of them have teeth yet. The teeth don't come in until 2026 or 2027, but all the requirements are out there of things you got to do. And it's mostly just around trying to build trust into the system. So it's a lot of documentation, making sure that, you know, and it's a lot of overlap with other things like data privacy, secure cybersecurity, things like that. Things that make sense,
Okay,
right? Like you don't want a data breach because and all that information from your AI gets leaked out. So
gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, 26 and 27 will become more knowledgeable, I'm sure. So
yeah. Yep.
as it gets teeth.
Yep.
So yeah, let's move into what makes your business so special. So how and why, and you touched on this, but how and why did you start this business?
Yeah, so we have what we found was one, as there's more AI adoption, so that, like I said, we got into this thinking we were just going to do AI governance. So that was kind of where we started. We got into it going, hey, there's not enough people talking about trust and transparency and ethics around AI. And this is coming from I've been in AI for the last decade and building AI, and I've been on teams that ethics never came up. That was never a conversation that was had. It was just like, let's build AI as fast as we can go, 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 get to an
Mm-hmm.
implementation, get ROI, right? Regardless of what happens, what wakes we create and damage we might create in the process of that. So we wanted to, so we decided, got into it to kind of be part of that. And then as we got into it, you start unwrapping the onion, you're like, oh, there's a lot going on just in general compliance that a lot of people are not able to do. If you're Microsoft, if you're a Google, something like that, and you have a huge compliance team, that's great. You're probably covered on everything. But there's all these small, medium-sized businesses, that are 50 employees that come in and it's some guy that's the head of operations that also doing ops and he's also doing 100 other jobs, right? And the compliance is just something he has to get done. And we noticed this when we started doing some of our implementation audits. We'd give him a list of like 25 different product or different artifacts they have to create, and the guy goes, this is cool. What are the 24 of them? I don't know what any of these are, and that was like a common theme we kept getting over and over is like people are like, this is great. I don't have a problem creating these. I don't know what these are. I don't know how to create these, right? And so then we started going, well, why can't we use AI to create these for them on their behalf, help them, get through this hurdle? Because like at the end of the day, the reality is we're in the compliance field, but the reality is everybody just wants to check the box and move on and keep innovating, keep building, keep selling, right? We want to enable that. That's what we want to do. That especially coming out of Texas, because we're here in Dallas, we're like very pro business, very capitalist. Like we want people to be able to grow their business. This is a thing you got to check and move through. But there's also the other side of that. It's like you want people to be compliant, so they're trustworthy. You trust their business, right? So that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
how we got to where we are now.
Okay, yeah. So as opportunities and problems arose, you say, hey, we can solve those, or hopefully try to solve some of those things.
Yeah,
Who primary
absolutely.
Yeah, who primarily does your business serve? So if I'm in the audience, how would I know if I'm a good fit for your product or service?
Yeah, so I mean, so we do say that we will fit any size. So I mean, in theory, an enterprise could use us. We're not really chasing, that's not our target demographic. It's not who we're chasing. Again, we're really trying to empower those small to medium-sized businesses. So if you're a million to 10 million in revenue, 50 employees, something like that's kind of our bread and butter. We will go, we kind of chase all the way up to 100 million in revenue, 250 employees, something, maybe 500 employees, depending on the type of business. We typically go after other technology type businesses because we're more familiar with those types of compliance. But in theory, like, if you had a plumbing practice and you just needed to be compliant in something, in theory, our technology would work for that. We have not tested that out, so I'm knocking on wood a little bit because like we haven't tested that would work. But in theory, the way we're building the frameworks and everything, it should work. But really, kind of the sweet spot is tech companies, that are small to medium size.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I was looking just the other day, I forget why, but I think there's 33.2 million businesses in the US. And I think you mentioned, like 1 to 10, I think you said 1 to 10 million or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and
Hmm.
I think there's only 3 million that are above a million in
Oh,
revenue. So,
really?
anyway, about 10% of the businesses in total that are above a million. Obviously, there's the huge corporations as well, but
Right.
those are
Right.
far and few between compared to the masses or the total. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, anyway, that's the segment you guys really focusing
Yeah.
on. So
Yeah.
cool. What and
And
you mentioned one or two things I believe already, but what makes your business unique? So why do customers or
yeah.
clients why do they choose you?
Well, so a couple things. So there is a lot of competition in this space, right? I don't want to try to say that we're the only compliance intelligence platform out there, right? There's others out there. There's actually tons of competitors. Now, what all the competitors I feel like are missing the boat on, they are not doing any of the artifact creation or evidence creation. So if you need a policy written, you need a process documented, you need whatever it might be created as part of evidence so that you can pass an audit for compliance. Not really any software. I should say there's probably not zero because there is probably somebody else. Like you're never the only one out there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
um,
Well,
the
after
majority,
yeah,
yeah, the
in the
big
next week
players,
in the next week or two
yeah,
now there will be so anyway.
oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. The big players are not doing that. They're just doing the evidence collection. So they just automate collection of evidence, right? That's great. That's part of the journey. But we have found is like that first part of the journey is where a lot of people have issues. Is like, I don't know what this document is. I don't know how to create this. And so we're using AI to be able to do that and connect those dots and create that whole journey of automation for them. So that's really kind of the big thing. And then I would say the other thing is this blockchain verification. While it does seem excessive, and trust me, I get asked all the time, like, do we really have to have blockchain? And the answer is no. And that is an actual and optional thing. If you don't want blockchain, you don't have to pay for that additional cost. It will lower the cost of our product. But the blockchain provides all of that trust and transparency to what the AI is doing. And I think that's super valuable, in my opinion, to what we're doing. That's different than everybody else out in the field.
Good. Appreciate the differences. I know as a consumer, you see a lot of businesses, and it's sometimes hard to see those
Yeah,
differentiations. So it's useful or helpful when the people who know them tell
yeah,
us. So
for sure.
uh, so let's and I mentioned marketing. So let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah,
A lot of businesses some struggle with marketing. It's obviously one of the components needed for growth.
yeah.
What has been the number one marketing strategy that's brought you the most business?
Mm. Good question. So, honestly, right now, because of where we are, what I'll say is we are doing two different types of things. So we're doing kind of direct cold outreach, right? So direct sales through networking, cold outreach. And we are also doing kind of product-led marketing, so that kind of product-led growth strategy where you're doing digital marketing, those kind of things. And that will probably pay off in a long-term play, but those building a brand is what 18 months, maybe you can do it faster. Some brands get viral, but like the traditional thing is like that's 18 months of constantly posting, constantly kind of putting your brand out there. So while that is kind of that engine is growing and starting to like get up steam, we are really relying on that direct cold outreach. So LinkedIn outreach is really big. My partner who's our CRO, is a wizard in LinkedIn. I wish I could explain more of what he does, but honestly, like I get in there and I'm like, that's amazing. That's why you're my business partner because he's
Yeah,
amazing at that, right?
yeah.
And then the
They're
other
like,
way that we do is we also offer a resell program for our platform. So we're growing through partnerships. That's
hmm,
a big thing for us is be able to get
yeah,
partners that they're providing technology consulting solutions or maybe even they're providing their own compliance solutions, right? And then they
yeah.
resell our platform to their clients, and that's been really big for us too.
Is it like a lot of IT tech companies or is it other types or
Um, so say that again.
is it like IT companies that are you're partnering with
IT.
or other types?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of split probably. I would say roughly 50-50. I don't know the exact numbers right now, but probably
Yeah.
IT consulting and compliance service providers. So that's
Okay.
I kind of didn't really mention it during the whole spiel about the platform, but we do have the ability to like sell this to compliance service providers, and then they have controls inside of the platform where they can provide a user experience for their clients. And so they basically use and the platform's called KIP, so Compliance Intelligence Platform, so KIP for short, CIP. So they use KIP as their own kind of how they, their compliance intelligence, how they provide the audits and implementations. And then
Yeah.
they can provide a dashboard basically for clients. So we have that version as well that we will sell. So compliance service providers are really big into that because also in that space, it's a whole kind of different problem set, but the software in that space is extremely expensive. To find really good software, especially software with AI baked into it, you're going to spend
Yeah.
100 grand a year, easy, easy 100 grand, and ours is significantly cheaper than that. So,
Okay, cool. So you got some of the what I'd call wholesale options brewing,
yes,
and then kind of the retail, if you will.
yep,
So
yep.
cool.
That's a great way to say.
Um,
I'm gonna steal that, by the way, Sean. That's a great way to say that because that's a
well,
much better way to say it.
because we work with so many businesses, that we have more of those. We talk about those kind of more generalized concepts
Yeah,
more
yeah,
frequently, and obviously they get specific when we get into the specific business. But
yep.
yeah, cool. So, what's my next question? So, looking back on your journey so far, what's
Mhm.
been the most memorable or hardest challenge, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, man, the hardest challenge. So I'm gonna kind of go predate Stones a little bit because that's kind of part of this journey. So I actually had an AI startup prior to Stones called Product Pal, where we were automating product management tasks. And I learned a lot in that, and ultimately it was a failure. We ended up running out of cash unceremoniously, like most startups do, right?
Hmm.
And so what I learned from that is one, don't try to do everything myself. I tried to be the master of everything and I was master of none in essence. That's a cliche, but that is very
Yep.
much true. So this time around with Stones, like we're trying to put good people around. Again, that's why I mentioned my business partner, David. He's amazing at cold outreach and the sales side. So I'm not trying to do all of that myself. He's handling that. I have a really good development team. We have a really cool marketing partner that's helping with all of our go-to-market strategies. So we're trying to put people in place to help us do those things. And I'm just trying to make sure the ship stays on course, if you will. So that's a lot
Yep.
more my lane and my speed. I can do that extremely well. Um, the other thing I would say is that's been hard, and I always feel like this is hard for most early companies, is especially last year. We've done better with it this year, and this is largely on me. I probably not as much the rest of the team, but is holding on to what I call is like your early babies, like so some early ideas that you come up with, and and like
Hmm.
they've run their course. They either didn't have product market fit, they didn't, whatever the reason is, you should cut those losses and move on from them.
Yep.
I was a little reluctant in a few things to cut some things in 2024, and that kind of dragged us down a little bit and had some heavier operating expenses that we kind of carried for longer than we should have. And so we're trying to do better with that. So for instance, like we just finished our last professional services client a couple weeks ago, and now we've suspended those services. We're no longer offering professional services. So those are kind of those things of like, like, and coming from product management, I like, this, it's one of those things like, but then when you try to act,
Hmm.
you try to do it, it's always a little bit harder. But like, I know that it's like you constantly iterate, don't get
Yeah.
tied to an idea, like move and iterate as fast as you can. The faster you can learn and iterate, the better you're going to have a chance of being successful.
Yeah.
And stay focused. But then putting that in practice is kind of hard because you kind of get attached to like what I call like your babies, right? You're like, oh man, I built this from scratch. This is so cool. And you're like, it
Yeah.
might be cool, but nobody wants your cool thing. So,
Yeah.
maybe you shouldn't
Yeah.
be putting money into it.
I tell you, us pesky emotional humans
Right.
makes things harder sometimes
Yeah.
to just do what you know in theory you know you should do, but you don't do it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
100% true.
yeah. So what about being an employer? So what? Obviously, team is another component of being successful business. So what's been your biggest learning as an employer since it began?
Yeah. So, this comes from the product pal days, but also a little bit from last year, in 2024 with Stones. what we're doing now, and I feel like this is I actually heard somebody say this at a recent conference. They call it like you need to be in cockroach mode, which what that means is
I'm
it,
very curious to hear how
yeah,
we
see
should be
where
like
that goes, right?
cockroaches. Yeah.
Is be as lean as possible, right? So with Product Pal, I did this, which has led to our like, not running out of funds. We did this a little bit in the beginning of 2024 with Stones, which is we kind of overemployed, like make sure we had employees to cover everything instead of like, being really lean, compensating the employees that we have extremely well so that they're happy, but being lean and forcing people to like kind of expand outside of their comfort zone a little bit and kind of like really stretch and really like kind of push themselves and then surround them with really high quality tools. So we're really big on like using as the latest and greatest AI tools. Um, and so that's kind of what we're doing now is we compensate people really well, but we are really lean, like super lean. We will always be a very, very lean company from an FTE, full-time employee perspective. And then we want to put in either, offshore partners, consulting firm partners, whatever that may be, or AI tools around them to help people kind of be one, be like three people in one type of deal. So that's a big thing that we're trying to push. That feels like the latest trend. If you look on X, like everybody like this one man startup is like this like huge trend on X right now. I don't think that's probably super realistic when you start to scale out, but we're kind of trying to breed and lead into that concept a bunch of just like how lean can we be? Can we be leaner? Like is there a way to like that's a question we ask at our ELT meeting every week is like, hey, can we be leaner? Is there places we can cut? We
Yeah.
can we can save burn rate because the honest truth is like and I know this is probably a later question, but the honest truth is the economy isn't fantastic right now. We're in the process of raising funds. It is taking longer than it has in the past because the economy is harder. People are doing more due diligence. I ultimately think that's probably a good thing in the long run
Yeah.
because if you can pass due diligence now, you're probably going to be successful because there is really stringent due diligence.
Yeah.
But because of that, like everything is taking a little bit longer. You need to be a little bit leaner. You need to be able to make it another 2 or 3 months than you
Yeah.
kind of thought you needed to or
Hmm.
expected you needed to. And so we really try to be that super lean, but again, take care of employees that we do have extremely well. So,
Hmm. Well, the as we know, a lot of the businesses that are out there fail from cash flow, right? Like you mentioned, hey, that last one of your last ventures, you ran out of money, and
yep.
so if you're not lean and you're maybe a little bloated or you're running a little bit with more expense than maybe you need, then all right, well you're shortening your window, your runway, which means hey, you got to go that much faster, like you said. And if you have a month or two shift or whatever that happens, that could be the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, really important, of course, to look at your profitability and cash flow so you can keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's also something I didn't do with Product Pal. I did early on is we have a fractional CFO. So I basically have a guy that because so here's the thing with me. I come up with a million ideas a day. All but maybe one of them are trash, and sometimes all a million of them are trash in a day, like and we should not do them. So
Mm.
my business partner, David, he's really good about, keeping me focused on that. And then my fractional CFO, he's just like, yeah, cool, man, but like you can't afford to do that right now. So
Yeah.
but we're not going to do that, And so like and I think, when it comes to employees, I think that's another thing to hit on is like if you're going to hire somebody, trust them to do the job and lean on them. Like I fully admit, and this is a big thing with Stone's AI, is we embrace our weaknesses. I am not good at a lot of things. Like I can build products, I can solution pretty cool. I have a pretty good vision of where we're trying to go. I can see these problems in the market. But, the sales side of it, that's not my strength. Marketing side is not my strength. Finance side and handling all the cash flow, that is not my strength. And so putting people in places and really leaning on them. And so when they tell me no, I don't overwrite them. I go, cool, that's a no. Great, got it. Let's move forward. So I think
Yeah.
that's really important too.
Yeah, I've heard one of the management books. I forget which one, but it talks about how you should make sure your team knows that they are 51% owners, right?
Yes.
So I'm 49, you're 51. So, you're going to have the overall say. Like if you say something, then I might have pushback or I might have questions or I might critically think or ask, try to refine it, but you're the guy, you're the woman, whatever. So,
Right.
you're
Yep.
51%,
Yep.
which sounds like what you're saying. Lean on them and use them, utilize them. So,
100%.
Yeah.
And that also comes to like that when you have that mantra, it really helps when it comes to conflict resolution too. Because if some, like I've had employees that try to, skip a level and come to me and be like, "Oh, well this," and I'm like, "Yeah, but what did so and so say?" And they said this, and I'm like, "I'm not overriding them. Like that's what they
Yeah.
said. That's what we're doing."
Yeah.
Or, that's what we're not doing. Either way, right? And it
Right.
just
Right.
makes it a lot easier because then they know that that's one stops the skip levels because they start coming to me, they start getting no every time. It's like, well, what's the point of going to him? He's just going to
Yeah.
side with this leader. And then two, it empowers that leader to like, have that confidence, that 51%, like I said, it's like, oh no, he has my back. He's backed me
Yeah.
up every time. So they can move forward, right? And so that's a really big thing as well is with that conflict resolution.
Yeah, when I feel like it's you're backing your system, right? The system
Right.
is you go to your manager, whoever that is,
Right.
and if you try to go around the system, I'm gonna say nope, we follow the system, right? And
Right.
so then at
Exactly.
least the people, the team, they know what to expect, and
Yeah.
they can do what they can do with the system. So
Right. Exactly
yeah,
right. Yeah, exactly
yep,
right.
cool. So what would you do different if you started over? Let's just kind of touch on Stone's AI. If you were to start
Mhm.
over Stone's AI today, what would you do different thus far, based on what you know?
Yeah, I mean, so I kind of alluded to a few of them, right? Like there was some decisions we could have, like professional services is just a practical example. Like we could have cut that probably at the end of last year. Um, and like kind of announced that we were cutting it. Like we haven't we've taken a couple clients since then, which have been okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that, but like we could have shifted all of those resources to building the product. We would already have a product probably out in market. We've learned a little bit since then, and it has helped improve the product with some of the learnings we've done with some of the projects we've done this year, but it hasn't dramatically changed the product to the point where I my opinion, if you have product and market, you're going to learn a lot more than those couple per projects that we would have done. So that's
Mm-hmm.
like one, very tangible, practical thing that definitely would have changed. And then like, oh man, like there's been like a bunch of little things like for instance, like I bought merch for everybody on the team. That was cool, but like, does everybody need a polo or does everybody need like a $45 polo or could I bought everybody
Yeah,
a $15 t-shirt? Like there's a bunch of little things like that, that like you kind of like, man, yeah, probably not the best use of funds, type of deal,
yeah,
but those aren't that big a deal. Those ultimately don't hurt that much, but they're just, you have a number of those, and you're like, well, that is an extra like client meeting or that is an extra whatever dinner
yeah,
out with an investor or whatever it might be. So
yeah, yeah. It's good, and I think it's good to kind of kind of weigh those. It's $1,000, okay, but what could we have done with 1,000 if it was
right.
a meeting with an investor? Maybe that would get a better ROI, right? So
Right.
always, I think, good to kind of just throw out those options so you can make sure you're putting it into the right
Yeah.
places. So yeah,
Yeah. 100%.
yeah. So what's next? You obviously have hit certain progress and
Yeah.
milestones so far in business. What's the next goal? What's the next milestone?
Yeah. So we're currently in alpha right now with, so that's, in essence, think of it like closed beta. We have two partners that are testing with us, and then internally we're testing it, right? And then we're gonna open up the beta kind of in stages. So we already have 20 people that are gonna roll into the first round, and then we have some people waiting for a second round. So first round of the like kind of official open beta is gonna happen mid-ish May, depending. I have a vacation. I'm going to Scotland for 2 weeks in the beginning of May, and so then we're kind of tentatively marked it as that first week back. And I'm like in my head, I'm going, yeah, first week back after 2 weeks of vacation. We'll see how that works out. But it'll be kind of around that time plane, into the end of May, maybe. We're going to start the beta. The beta will run through September or October, depending on kind of how that goes. And that's a free beta. So anybody that, if anybody hears this and you're interested, come to the site, join the wait list. We'll get you rolled into the rolling beta. And like every month, we're going to roll more people into it. And so that's kind of the
Yes.
next immediate things that are up. And then obviously, like I said, we're still in the investment journey right now. Still looking for a couple investors, to help us out. So.
Okay. So on the way to those next steps, or
Mhm.
those the next milestone, any challenges you expecting, or you think, with your history or knowledge from the past that you might foresee a little bit?
I mean, there's going to be a million different challenges just as far as getting the beta up and running. I mean, that's just the nature of launching a product. Anybody who's launched a product can probably, as well as I can, speak to all the things that we're going to encounter with all of that. I think the other challenge, honestly, that we're really having is finding a good balance between partners that would use this as a service provider and businesses that would use like KIP directly, right? Because we want to have a
Mhm.
really healthy balance because ultimately this beta may end up telling us which direction we go and focus on as a primary. We will probably always have both, but we will probably end up picking one as a primary and putting, vast majority of our go-to-market resources in that space as well as development resources, right? And
Yeah.
so getting that healthy balance so we can get really good tests out of that, I think is really important. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably like the biggest one.
Okay. Good. Yeah, I know. Obviously, as you encounter more challenges, usually that makes you a little bit better at forecasting the challenges, or just trying to look forward and see some of the challenges. Of course, you will never see all the challenges; there'll be always be unexpected ones. But it's
Hmm.
useful to think about what that challenge could be, and of course, you can get ahead of it. But
Yeah, I mean,
um,
sorry, Sean, the other thing, I would probably throw out there is with this investment and like, I think the biggest unknown, I think in everybody that's in similar spaces that we are right now, it's really hard to tell what the economy is going to do. And if it continues to get worse, I just think that's going to stretch these investment periods out longer, right? And so that's a big thing that we're spending a lot of time on as like trying to get in front of that. Hopefully won't be a challenge, but like, and that's why I brought up the lean thing. That's because that's a very much on top of our mind right now is like, man, if this, we kind of anticipated to have investment around middle of the year. If that stretches into the fall, okay, what does it look? How does that look? Like, how do we bridge that gap for 3 months, maybe 4 months to get us into fall and before we secure investment and everything else, right? So those are, because we're running about as lean as we can. So those are tricky challenges that we're trying to figure out as well. It's like, can we be desperately lean in some ways so we can make sure, and ultimately like it's interesting because like the leaner you get, the more investors actually like you. So it's actually kind of an interesting ploy because they're like, oh, you can do this with like, gum and a shoelace. You can build a whole product. Like that's pretty cool. And you're like,
yeah,
yeah, but we don't want to do gum and a shoelace forever. I can't feed
yeah.
my employees gum.
Well, it's kind of like the banks, right? It's the debt to
Yeah,
income ratio. It's this idea of how
yeah,
much what's your monthly expense rate, and so if it's pretty low, then great. I have high confidence you'll be able to quote pay us back, or I get
right.
my investment back. So yeah,
Yeah,
I could see where that interest would be. Um,
yeah.
so before we get into the last question, how can others learn more about you or your company? How can they get in contact?
Yeah, so stonesai.com, that's probably the best place. You can also hit us up on LinkedIn. We are working on getting our X page. I've just started to learn to say X. I've been saying Twitter,
I know.
Twitter
Every
still.
time I even say X, I'm like, I know what that is, but I feel like you're still sort
Yeah.
of really you're thinking Twitter, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
always thinking Twitter. I'm still old school in that sense.
yeah,
But yeah, so hit us up on LinkedIn. Ryan Strong, I'm fairly easy to find. My partner David Trowbridge, he's also fairly easy to find. If you find Stones AI, you'll find us there. Those are the two best places for sure. And yeah, looking forward to
good.
hearing more people.
Yeah. So last question, and I think you already mentioned it, or maybe it's something different. Any special offers you'd like to offer any listeners?
Yeah, sure. That's actually, I'm glad you brought that up. So we are doing, so our beta is free. It will be free for the whole beta, everybody that gets into it, but everybody that gets into these early bird right now, so everybody in this first wave that's coming in, everybody's coming in second wave, and we're now extending that into the third wave. So if you have May roll in, the June roll in, and now the July roll in of betas, they're all going to get a special offer for lower price and for a extended free into 2026. I almost said 2025, but it's 2025 now. So as we roll into 2026, they'll get a discounted price and extended free use of the service through them. So if you get in early, that's you get to have it play it with it for free for longer.
And if someone's interested, they contact you in the way you just mentioned, right?
Yes, please.
All right.
Yep.
Awesome. Good deal. So, well, thanks so much, Ryan, for joining us and sharing all the information. And thanks to the audience for hopefully watching, getting some good nuggets out of Ryan's content or Ryan's details. And so we're going to wrap up. And thanks, Ryan, again for being on and make it a great day.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. This is great.